Hello and welcome once again to the video. In this one, as the title would suggest, I am going to be looking at the Austrian Grand Prix, the latest in my series looking at every Grand Prix in the 2025 Formula One World Championship, as I've been doing for the last few years, basically. Just from a fan's perspective, I've been a fan for decades, going back to the early 80s. The Monaco Grand Prix of 1982 was the first one that I watched all the way through properly. Let's get rid of that little bit of dust. And a little bit of pickup on the tyre there. And yeah, I've been a big fan ever since. So, but I'm not a technical know-it-all by any standards, basically. So, yeah, big fan. Right, so my usual routine is that I list down, a little bit overcrowded, you have to forgive me for that. Or forgive Norris for that. I list down the finishing order, then the top 10 in the championship. By the way, despite having 3 Norrises here, I am going to be bigging up Piastri, okay? I will be, I assure you. Not beating up Piastri, bigging up Piastri, yeah. And I should be, where was I? I'll be listing the finishing order down here, and then the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship, and then somewhere over here, the rundown of the Constructors' Championship. Okay, so let's squeeze in here somewhere. This was race number, oh dear, that always happens. Race number 11, Austria, at the fantastic looking Red Bull Ring. Formerly the Österreich Ring, before Dietrich Mateschitz, the founder of Red Bull, or co-founder, I think, of Red Bull, before he bought the sort of rundown circuit and paddock and everything in 2004, rebuilt it all, and it's great, I love it. But I was watching that drive up to the first corner, I was watching that in the 80s. I remember the big race in 1987 at the Österreich Ring, where they had to restart it twice because of 2 big accidents at the start going up to that first corner. So yeah, I still wish we could call it the Österreich Ring, basically the Austrian circuit. But fair dues to Red Bull, it should be called Red Bull Ring. The fantastic job they've done with the circuit. Okay, so let's go, shall we? Let's write down the finishing order. Am I going to fill these in? They're going to have to be tightly packed together, I think. So we got Norris, Piastri now. My usual routine, I have to make sure that's in focus. Naughty. Okay, good. So Leclerc. Russell. And we got Lawson. Alonso. Bortoleto. Hulkenberg. Ocon. Bearman. Hadjar. Not Hadjar. David Croft. Not Hadjar. Hadjar. 13 is Gasly. Stroll. 15, Colapinto. 16, Tsunoda. 17, Albon. And Verstappen. Antonelli. And Sainz. Okay, so constructors, drivers' championship. We have Piastri 216, Norris 201, Verstappen 155, Russell 146. Check the focus again, check the focus, very important, check the focus. Just bear with me a moment while I try to do this without causing too much disturbance. 5th place, Leclerc on 119. 6th place as usual every year, 91 for Hamilton. Antonelli 63. Albon 42. Ocon 23. Hulkenberg 22. I just moved slightly, didn't it? Let's just readjust. I think it's okay. I think it's okay. I only just got Sainz in at the bottom. I only just noticed that. Okay, so now let's put in the constructors. If I can do this without disturbing Norris. McLaren 417. Ferrari 210. Mercedes 209. Max Bull 162. Williams 55. Racing Bulls 36. That's 29. Aston Martin 28. These are all very close together. Sauber 26, but not Alpine. On 11. Okay. Well, just got all that on. Just about got all that all in, didn't I? Right. By the way, these cars that we are accompanied by today are all Norris, obviously. You've got the MCL 36 from 2022, the MCL 60 from 2023, and the MCL 38 from 2024. Very nice. Had to put them out there. I don't actually have any Piastris, I'm afraid. That's not because I'm out of it's not because I'm not a fan of Piastri. It's just not one of the cars I have for some reason. That's why I don't bring out a Piastri when he wins. Okay, so fastest lap was Piastri. Let's just put down the number of wins, shall we? So Piastri's had 5, Norris has had 3, Verstappen's had 2, Russell's had 1, McLaren have had 8, Mercedes have had 1, Red Bull have had 2. So what do we think of that race? Well, obviously I'm happy with the result. Was there anybody else in the race apart from Norris and Piastri? I was just looking at them the whole time. I'm happy that Norris didn't make any mistakes this time. There's an interesting statistic that I heard during the race weekend, that going into this race, so before any of the sessions in this race, before qualifying in this race, if you just look at the Q3 sessions in both Grand Prix and sprints, so that's 12 races before this one, Piastri is leading Norris 8-4. Well, I guess it's 8-5 now, isn't it? 8-5. So we can include this race. 8-5. Right, Piastri leads Norris. But if you look at Q1 and Q2, Norris is leading 19-7. He was quickest in Q1 and Q2, wasn't he, Norris? I think he was quickest in both Q1 and Q2. Apologies if he wasn't, but I think he was. Anyway, if you don't include this race, it's 17-7 to Norris. If he was quickest in both of those, which I think he was, then it's 19-7 to Norris. And that just goes to show how Norris has the speed, but just seems to make mistakes in Q3. Or the other thing that's also been said is that Piastri is a slow burn and he builds up through the weekend. And he's at his slowest on sort of Friday practice, and he gradually speeds up and sort of peaks for the Q3. And he's got himself into some good positions in Q3, which is he's then been able to turn into wins. But it does show that Norris, the speed is there for Norris, very much so. He beats Piastri most of the time, but then just makes silly mistakes. But I have to say, this race was the most impressive Grand Prix that I've seen by Piastri. He didn't win the race, but it's the most dangerous he's looked, I think. And for the first time, I think, do you know what? Piastri might be championship winning material. Now, I know there are people out there, because I get comments, people out there who cannot understand how anyone could ever possibly think that Norris could ever win the championship. Well, he's super fast. You could argue only Verstappen is faster out there, or Leclerc. I would say that Verstappen, Leclerc and Norris are the 3 fastest drivers in Formula 1 at the moment. And so to have one of the fastest drivers win a championship, surely that's not beyond the realms of possibility, is it? Especially as he's faster than Piastri. But a lot of people think that even though Norris has shown he's faster, it would be really strange for Norris to win the championship. It wouldn't be strange at all. It wouldn't be strange for Piastri to win either, because you can win a championship by using your head as well and being calm and controlled and not making mistakes. So you can win a championship that way, or you can win it through out and out speed, which Norris has. But it's strange when I've heard people comment that they cannot understand how anyone would think that Norris could ever win the championship. Yeah, you could think that about Stroll. Yes, you can think that about Stroll or Tsunoda, but to think that about Norris is crazy. But for the first time, I actually think that Piastri is championship winning material, because for the first time, and you could argue this is my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, but for the first time, Piastri has shown himself in the middle of a race, or at any stage during a race basically, to be consistently quicker lap after lap than Norris. And in that first session, he was. Now, I've always said that Norris is a slow starter in any stint, basically. Piastri is a slow starter over the weekend, but in the actual, in a racing stint, Norris is the slow one. He's always slow at the start of Grand Prix. He's always slow at the start of any stint on new tyres. But the significant thing here was that Piastri was all over Norris for 20 laps and got past Norris until Norris did the switcheroo. Nice little move by Norris. Back up the inside. He seemed to have a problem with his DRS. That was on lap 11. As was pointed out by Anthony Davidson afterwards, his DRS turned off or shut down basically earlier than it should have done when he'd done the switcheroo and he was alongside Oscar. I should say Oscar instead of Piastri because the P from Piastri punches the microphone quite aggressively, so I should try and not say Piastri as much as I do. I should keep it at Oscar and Lando. So Lando was alongside Oscar, and his DRS switched off, and then switched back on again, and then switched off again. So that would have made it a bit more difficult for Lando to get back past Oscar, but he did. But I couldn't believe how quick Oscar was. Also, with those tyres, his tyres would have been getting a beating behind Lando. His tyres should have been wearing out faster than Lando's, but he was all over him, and he was taking tighter lines into the corners as if he had much fresher tyres on. Lando was having little bites of the steering wheel here and there, little twitches. Nothing from Oscar at all. Those first 20 laps belonged completely to Oscar. Not just the first few laps. I expect Oscar to be quicker than Lando in the first few laps of a race, but not for 20 laps. So that was ominous for Oscar's pace. In the middle stint, by pitting first, Lando managed to get a little bit of a gap there. And it did come down a bit, but basically it stayed the same, didn't it? 4.5, 5 seconds. So I think they were pretty much level in the middle stint on the hards. But then on the final stint, again, Oscar was quicker. Closed in. At one point, Lando said, I need help. Where am I slow? Where can I go quicker? And the team just said to him, well, we think it's just down the straights, possibly to do with traffic, which was an odd thing because at the time he wasn't passing any traffic. Hadn't passed any traffic for a while at that point. So I think that's the team just grasping at straws. There was no corner that they could tell Lando, oh, if you do this, you'll be a little bit quicker. It just happened to be that Oscar was quicker, and just as he was in the first stint. But then Lando did speed up a bit. He managed to find some pace, and he managed to maintain it at 2 seconds, pretty much, around about 2 seconds. But Oscar had closed it from about, after their second pit stop, I think he was about 6 seconds behind, something like that, 5 or 6 seconds. He closed it down to 2 seconds, but then couldn't get any closer because Lando speeded up. Such a nerve-wracking race. I didn't watch it live because I'm always out on Sundays during the day, and so it's rare for me to watch these European ones live, unfortunately. The thing that I was actually doing during the day was watching the F1 movie. I thought, as Ted Kravitz said in the coverage of the Grand Prix, he said it might be a good time to actually go and see the Grand Prix today because no one will be in the cinema if they're Grand Prix fans. They'll all be at home watching the Grand Prix. And true enough, there weren't many people watching in the cinema. I shall be doing a video very soon on what I thought of the F1 movie. Right, so basically, I was just absolutely glued to the screen. I wanted to fast forward. I've never done that in decades of watching Formula One. If I've recorded a race like I used to record on VHS tape. Yes, back in the day, I used to record races if I couldn't watch them live on VHS tape. And so I was tempted to fast forward it, but I didn't because I was so nervous in the last 5 or 6 laps. And I'm thinking, what must Lando be thinking? How nervous must he be? Because they're professional racing drivers. They're in the heat of the moment. They don't have time to feel nervous. the adrenaline's pumping, they just get on with it. But if you're watching it, God dear, I remember the 1991 French Grand Prix at Magny-Cours. 1991 French Grand Prix, the first Grand Prix at Magny-Cours, and in France, and Alain Prost in this Ferrari against Nigel Mansell in his Williams, and it was going to be Mansell's first win of the season, and he managed to get past. He had managed to overtake Prost, and there was a few laps to go, and I was itching to fast forward. I still managed to resist, but the feeling I got through this race reminded me of the 91 French Grand Prix, when I was desperate to have my stress eased and just see the result. Mansell did win that race. Okay, so what else about the actual race itself? Everybody else in the race. The start, Sainz. What was Sainz up to there? He was doing a Sunny Haze from the film. I thought at first. I thought, he's got away from the start-finish line, and he's going to catch up to the back of the grid, and then his tyres will be warm, and he'll be really fast at the start. Just like they had Sunny Haze do in the F1 movie. But that's not a spoiler, what I've just said. I won't say anymore. So basically, but no, some issue with Sainz's car. It seems that when he did eventually do that formation lap, it looks like his brakes were still on. It looks like maybe his brakes were stopping him from moving to begin with. Then he managed to move. Maybe the brakes released a little bit, but not enough to stop them bursting into flames when he finished his formation lap. And that was him out. Verstappen being taken out by Antonelli. That does sometimes happen. I've done that loads of times in F1 PC game, where you see a gap and you think, oh, everyone's slowing up going into this corner. I'll just nip down the inside, and then of course you get clobbered by all the cars turning into the corner. That's not exactly how it went with Antonelli. I think he was just caught out by a couple of cars slowing up faster than he thought, going into the turn 3, and he jigged to avoid them, but was still going way too fast himself, and then collected Verstappen, nearly collected Hamilton, nearly collected Lawson, nearly wiped out Lawson. Lawson, of course, went on to finish 6th. So lucky escape there for both Hamilton and Lawson. What else? Oh yeah, Hamilton racing side by side with Russell. That was great to see. That was some fantastic. Hamilton did quite a lot of side by side racing in this race, which was great to see as well. Focus. Yeah, as I said earlier, Piastri managing to stay as close as he did. How was he able to protect his tyres? Well, maybe he wasn't protecting his tyres. Maybe he was just able to go super fast. But teammates following each other, it's supposed to be very difficult. But Oscar was so good in that first stint, so fast. God dear, if Lando had not been able to do the switcheroo, that would have been it. Even if Lando speeded up later in the race, he would have been too far behind him by the first pit stop. Amazing stuff by Oscar. Colapinto tried to chase Oscar up a tree, didn't he? Obviously accidental, but at the same time he should be punished, and he has been punished with a grid penalty for Silverstone, because you should look in your mirrors. He says he didn't know Piastri was there. Well, look in your mirrors, and then you'll see him. So yeah, Colapinto has to have a penalty for that. It's amazing that Oscar didn't spin going off the grass to that extent, going onto the grass to that extent. Yeah, so one thing that helped Lando towards the end there, even though he was able to maintain a 2-second gap, definitely coming across Alonso and Bortoleto, they were scrapping, they were fighting for position for 7th place. Manager and basically Sith Lord and Apprentice, Alonso and Bortoleto, or Jedi Master and Padawan, if you want to call them that instead. But getting past Lando, getting past Alonso and Bortoleto, that was scary. with Alonso and Bortoleto fighting and swapping places and driving side by side. How on earth was Lando going to get past those two? So at first I thought this is it. This is going to ruin the race for Lando. Oscar will close up those 2 seconds. And because he's the second car to encounter the lap traffic will then be aware, because they don't seem to get told on the radio. These, watch out, there's someone coming up to lap you. If they were, then it wouldn't always benefit the second car coming along, but the leader is always the first one to encounter these cars, and because of that always seems to suffer more than the car behind, when in actual fact, if those cars being lapped have been properly notified, then it shouldn't matter whether you're the first car to approach those those cars to be lapped, or the second car. They should jump out of the way either way. But that was scary stuff. Bortoleto did. He slammed on the brakes and let Lando past, which helped Alonso, of course. And then when the point that I knew the race was won was when Lando got past Fernando before Oscar got past Bortoleto. So suddenly then we had 2 laps to go, 1.5 laps to go, and then both Alonso and Bortoleto were in between Oscar and Lando. Now, I don't think Lando should feel that he, narrowly won the race, and Oscar was all over him, and Oscar was better than him. He shouldn't think that, because just 2 weeks ago, Lando was all over Oscar. He just messed up the overtaking manoeuvre. So, this race, Oscar was all over Lando for much of the race. In Canada, it was the other way around. So, and apparently in this race, I did hear it was said by Lando, not by anybody else, I have to say. It was said by Lando, but I believe him because he seems to be quite an honest chap. But Lando said that he was having problems with his battery deployment in the first stint, and that was causing issues with all throughout the lap, basically. Not being able to deploy the battery when he wanted to, that sort of thing. Not being able to charge it up when he wanted to. He said that cleared up after the first pit stop. Right, so what else? So what have we done? 28 minutes. Yeah, so fastest lap for Piastri. I've put that down there. Who else? I haven't really talked about anybody else that much, have I? Alonso, one stopper. He made the one stopper work. Lawson did a one stopper as well. So those 2 one stoppers, I think they're the only 2 that did one stoppers, and they came 6th and 7th. So it's very good. Russell was miles behind the Ferraris. The Ferraris did very well. The others, they were a distance behind the McLarens, but they were the best of the rest. We don't know where Verstappen would have finished in the Max Bull, but that's not a Red Bull anyway, is it? It's a Max Bull. I said when they swapped Lawson with Tsunoda, I said, what are they doing? Tsunoda's not going to be any better because it's not the driver. They're finally realising. Let's all apologise to Daniel Kvyat. Yeah, it's not the driver, it's the car. Whether or not that goes back as far as Kvyat, I don't know. And after that, Gasly, and after that, Albon, and after that, Perez, and after that, Lawson, and after that, Tsunoda. Now, Hadjar is smart enough to constantly keep waving his arms and going, no, when anyone suggests, you're going to go into a Red Bull. No. Very wise, Hadjar, very wise. Because you won't be doing yourself any favours by doing that. Stroll, miles down the field, shouldn't be in Formula 1 anymore. Ocon did well to finish 10th, 10th and 11th, the Haases. Alpine still doing bad. Now, see, Hamilton shook his head when he saw the times. There was a little shot of him in his helmet, looking at the lap times and things like that, and distances, and all that sort of stuff on a big screen. And he as he walked off, he shook his head slightly, and I don't think that was because they were a distance behind the McLarens. because he has praised the upgrades on the Ferrari at this race. So he's pleased with the upgrades. He's shaking his head because yet again he's been beaten by Leclerc. 10 seconds. He's slightly slower than Leclerc every lap of every Grand Prix. It's okay if it's 1 or 2 races like that, but every single race. I know he finished ahead of him at Imola, but that was more down to sort of tyre strategy. And that's the only race where he's finished ahead of him, apart from that sprint in China. But Leclerc is just a tiny bit faster than Hamilton on every single lap at every single Grand Prix. And that must be so deflating for Lewis. Where does he go with that? Is he just going to be the slower teammate next year as well for the rest of this year and next year, and maybe the year after if he stays in Formula One? Hamilton has definitely said he's in Formula One next year, and he's made a big song and dance about how it's daft to think he won't be there. So he can't really pull out now, can he, without making himself look terrible. So I'm sure he'll be in Formula One next year in the Ferrari, but beyond that, possibly not. If he's just going to get slightly beaten by Leclerc every single lap, every single race, that's only going to damage Hamilton's reputation, basically, historical reputation. Okay, so in the championship, look at that, Ferrari back up to second. They were in second a few races ago, and they're back up to second again. But it's incredible how Ferrari, who are basically performing badly, and yet they're second in the championship because Red Bull have only got 1 car. Mercedes, well, Antonelli has not scored particularly well in the sort of last 4 or 5 races. Did I put Racing Bulls? Look, sorry about that. It should be Racing Bull, not Racing Bulls. I hate it when people put an S on the end of things like Trivial Pursuits, Chris Eubanks. And I've done that there, put an S on the end. Oh dear. Anyway, so there you go. So that's the race. Fantastic race. On the edge of my seat. Now I'm looking forward to Silverstone next week. I'm not going, unfortunately. The last British Grand Prix I went to was 2008. A long time ago now. 17 years. I need to go. I'll have to sell my house to afford it, of course. But anyway. So, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to subscribe, please do so. If you'd like to comment on the video or like the video, or leave a tip on the thanks button below the video, then all of that is most welcome. But mainly just thank you for watching and listening. And I will see you on the very next video, which may well be about the F1 movie. And quite possibly, maybe. Okay, thank you and goodbye for now.